Over in the west, young airmen get their wings. It's a proud day at this Westralian station of the Royal Australian Air Force, where the training under the Empire Air Scheme brings this coveted insignia.
During World War II, Geraldton was home to a radar intelligence gathering station, intercepting enemy radio signals. 80 years later, the town continues its legacy of surveillance through the Kojarena Defense Communication Station, known to locals as a spy base.
The thing about what happened in the Second World War was it was an industrial scale collaborative venture between Australia and the United States to have insights on what the enemy was doing in order to provide decision advantage to Australian and US forces operating in a war against Japan.
John Blaxland is a professor of international security and intelligence studies. He believes ongoing secret surveillance is essential to keeping Australians safe because he notes similarities between Japan's actions in World War II and China's strategies today.
We haven't actually been thinking that China could actually come down and touch us. We think that it's only going to happen up there in the South China Sea around Taiwan. Well, no, much like Japan could come and touch us in World War II, nowadays China could touch us on a much greater scale. We're already seeing China's assertive behaviour around Solomon Islands, Kiribati, and just recently around Tonga, doing security deals. What do they need to have a security deal within the South Pacific? What's the point of that if it's not to actually be in a position in due course to be able to intimidate Australia and New Zealand?
Author and historian Stan Gratt was just a young boy living in Geraldton during World War II, but he can vividly remember his father, who was a member of the Voluntary Air Observation Corps, saying there was a threat of enemy spies possibly operating in the region and secretly passing intelligence back to the enemy.
There's an Italian, he came here as a barber. He built himself a very nice house behind the wharf. He put an aerial, a massive aerial over the house with square insulators. And people were remarking about this.
Stan remembers the day when his dad was taking the family down to the beach in the very early days of World War II.
So we're going down in the old car past this bloke's house, and there he is with a very big telescope. Now, I knew telescopes because Dad was in the rifle range and it was twice as big as Dad. And Dad said to me, said to us in the back, he said, "See that, don't forget it." And I didn't, I remembered that.
As Japan entered World War II, several locations along WA's northern coastline were bombed through Japanese air raids. And when a Japanese spy plane flew over Geraldton, the army ordered the town's residents to evacuate for fears it would be next, as it offered a railway line direct to Perth, a harbour and a large airport.
It's a big airport. And then if they got Perth and Geraldton, well, Albany would be a foregone conclusion. And they had the whole Indian Ocean.
And it nearly happened.
There was a Japanese submarine, this is in January 1943, and it was actually going to shell Geraldton, the Geraldton Harbour, and it was on the surface, and I think there were American planes, a few American planes came in to land at the Geraldton airstrip, and they put their landing lights on, which shone down on the water, and the captain of the Japanese submarine got a bit of a fright. So he headed back out to sea to get away from these. He thought he was going to get attacked.
Instead, the Japanese submarine fired around 10 rounds at Port Gregory, a small fishing town just north of Geraldton. The threat of a Japanese invasion saw 40,000 troops based in the Geraldton area. It changed the small coastal town, which was usually home to 5,000.
Around Minginyu and that, I can remember my father was one of the soldiers out there, and he told me the story of there's lots of tanks out there, and thousands of men in camps all over the place, and there was coastal patrols up and down the coast and coast watch posts. It's really a fascinating bit of history.
World War II transformed intelligence operations, highlighting the critical role of signals intelligence and code breaking. Intercepting and deciphering enemy communications has proved pivotal in shaping modern warfare.
After the war, there was a question, well, what do we do now? The Americans left. The Brits wanted to come back. The Brits re-engaged, and they helped us pick up some of the slack where the Americans had been doing the heavy lifting. We figured that we really couldn't afford to be as uninformed of our neighbourhood as we were prior to the Japanese attack.
Given that Mr Beazley says it's the first, and probably the last time, the federal government will give so much detail about one of its defence facilities. That's because the station, to be built in these hills near Geraldton, will be so conspicuous. It will cover some 40 hectares and contain sophisticated equipment to monitor foreign communications.
In the late 1980s, a new intelligence facility began construction just 30 kilometres east of Geraldton. It's called Kojarena Defense Communication Station.
For while Pine Gap monitors Soviet rocket launches, the Geraldton base will fine-tune its electronic ears to 8 Soviet satellites that carry military and diplomatic information.
The Defence Signals Directorate is a very important gatherer of foreign information for the Australian Defence Department and government as a whole. And this is part of the Defence Signals Directorate's operations and will enhance them.
In recent years, certainly in recent decades, it's become very, very much part of that wider so-called Five Eyes, US, UK, New Zealand, Canada, Australia, is essentially a spy base. And a lot of the key equipment comes with the United States. Pretty much everything that comes out of that Kojarena facility goes to the Americans and is analysed by them. But it is one of the parts of the system which is definitely in itself controlled by the ADF. It's controlled from Canberra.
Brendan Nelson told Parliament after 2 years of secret negotiations, a deal's close on putting an unmanned communications system at the existing defence base at Geraldton to link to US military satellites. He says all information will be shared.
We will be fully aware of the information that goes through that ground-based system.
The local mayor doesn't like being kept in the dark.
We've been given absolutely no information at all by the federal government.
And Peter Garrett isn't the only Labor MP with concerns.
My concerns are with any base like this, firstly, it's a terrorist target.
So how much should the public really know about what defence communication stations like Kojarena are actually doing?
There are things which if I knew about Kojarena, the spy base in the part, in particular, I would not publish and I would not communicate to other people. But these are very technical. These would be very technical things about precisely what wavelengths, what frequencies, in what areas can they exactly penetrate. So they're the sort of things that my Chinese spy master, for example, were there such a person, would be wanting me to find out. Otherwise, I'm not much more use than that. But big things about the overall functions of it, who it's targeting, which countries it's targeting, these are important.
John Blaxland thinks that spy bases like Kojarena are pretty transparent.
You can go right up to the fence of Kojarena, right up to the fence of Pine Gap. Try that in North Korea, try that in Russia, try that in China, and good luck to you.
But a good spy doesn't let others know how good they are.
The thing is, in the espionage business, the secret of success, often enough, is in keeping your successes secret. You don't want to gloat. You certainly don't want to proudly display how good you are, because in doing so, you will make sure that your target will make it harder in future for you to keep doing that. There's actually an important message to tell the Australian people within reason about a function that's performed on their behalf by overwhelmingly honourable, hard-working Australians who are doing the right thing by trying to look out for Australia, its interests, and make sure that we're as best postured, best protected as we can be in the face of potential threats.